says we're live. That's great. Just bear with us, folks. We're going to go ahead and kick off this stream on Instagram. If it could keep up. It's working on it. All right, and there we go. Welcome to a Muzzled Chat. Guys, I am psyched for today's episode. We have none other than Tahir, and Lucas is running a little late, but he should be joining us here shortly. And I just want to thank these gentlemen for their service and for their continual service on behalf of all our freedoms to this day, even after horrifically receiving the boot due to the COVID tyranny. So I'm just very excited to have Tahir and more so dive into his story today and get a little more about him, kind of a recap and why he joined the service here. But everything he dealt with helped expose this tyranny, the COVID crimes. So it just could help us see things more clearly to address these threats that we're all faced with. So I couldn't be more excited. Tahir, welcome to Unmuzzled Chat again, brother. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
You know, I'm better, and I'm gonna even be better, I know, after this episode, just like the last one. You've clearly tapped into some of God's gifts for you, and you just have a beautiful spirit, a glow about you. I want to inquire more and find out where you're gaining that, because that is what could fuel all of us to becoming not just more so the solutions in the world we live in, but fulfill the purpose as to why we're here in the spiritual nature. So really excited to have you. It is my honor. Folks, look at this Black Eagle apparel shirt, $22 a day. And I believe it is even more horrific than that. And my goodness, we look at our government, like, why are we even entrusting in that anymore, or any three-letter agency? And the simple fact that they're spending billions on an invasion, illegals that are entering our country illegally. They're spending billions, wasting it on them. Could you imagine what we could be doing for our service members, their families, and especially our veterans, and give them the support, the financial support, the emotional support? I mean, those funds could be allocated. It's not even a comparison as to what's being spent on our veterans and what's being spent on the invaders at this point. And my heart really goes out. So if we could at least assemble on that singular narrative this very episode and get behind our warriors such as Tahir and Lucas that are selflessly showing up on our behalf today, we could gain great momentum, a great blessing that could save a lot of lives. All right, there's a little noise coming in on your end over there. Is it okay?
I'm outside, so it's like the wind blowing a little bit. So
all good.
Yeah.
All good, brother. I'll let you know if it gets to where, if I can't hear you, there is a setting that you could click into settings down below audio, and there's an echo cancellation tab, and that may help minimize it. Just throwing that out there.
Gotcha. All right.
I'm so grateful, man. I'm so psyched that none other than Tahir is back on Unmuzzled Chat, and it's more exclusive. Like, we had kind of a full house last time, and just to get more your story to hear, I'm freaking excited. So why don't you start wherever you feel most impressed? I mean, if you want to recap a bit as to why you joined the service in the first place. That was a pretty powerful story, as I recall.
Oh yeah. So just want to thank you again for having me, and I'm glad to be able to share my story. And I just want to start off, just saying, on behalf of the many soldiers that have been, discharged for the COVID vaccine, we all stand with you guys, and thank you guys like James and many other our fellow brothers and sisters in arms that are giving us a platform to voice, our opinions and our thoughts, and just to keep this issue relevant. It's
Yes.
It's amazing, and I'm thankful to have the opportunity to take advantage of this. So for me, basically, I mentioned last time I was on here with Colonel Brad Miller and Lucas. So I joined the Army, back in 2014. Just based off a lot of reasons. Mainly patriotic reasons. I mentioned before that I came to U.S. when I was about 6 years old, and I grew up all my life in Harford County, Maryland, and I think just to expand on the story a little more, my junior year of high school, there's a program called Boy State. I don't know if you ever heard of it, James. Boy State.
Boy State. No, I'm not familiar. What's that about?
So Boy State is like you could say it's called, it's like a patriotic, like citizen program where basically they take all the incoming seniors, basically the summer of your junior year going to your senior year, they have pretty much an opportunity to sign up for this seminar. It's like a 10-day program, really. And it's run by the American Legion and a bunch of other veteran organizations.
Okay.
And so you would have to apply for this program and get nominated by your local congressman and the American Legion post in your county or area, wherever you live at. And once they select you, then you'll go and assemble with a bunch of different juniors, male juniors from from your state, and you get together and just have a 10-day just patriotic like experience. Yeah,
bro, that's cool. How old were you?
I was I was like 16, 17, 16, 17, going into my
is that program still active today? It sure should be.
I think so. Yeah, it's actually a big program. You have to actually like apply to it. You have to get nominated, and it was actually a big deal when I got when I applied for it and they accepted me into it. And I got a picture of my congressman. He gave me an award and everything for getting chosen to do Boy State. And mind you, I didn't know anything about the military at the time. They didn't know anything about Boy State and anything like that. And I didn't even know what an American Legion was.
Right.
So I'll never forget his name. His name was Charles Slimowicz. And he, I applied, and he's like, "Hey, congratulations, you got chosen, and I want to take you to Senator Barry Glassman, a representative at the time." And he took I took a picture with him. He gave me an award for being selected, and then we went to George Washington University in Maryland, and had the seminar over there, and it was a great experience. We wore uniforms, just Maryland State Boy State uniforms, and we had American Legion on our logo on our shirts. They made us walk in formation, and it was kind of like a miniature, semi-military setting, because it was obviously run by veterans, and most of the veterans were there were World War II, Vietnam vets. It was all vets, literally. And it was about maybe I would say 200 boys there, I believe 100, 200 boys, I can't remember.
You're making me jealous to hear. That's an experience I would have loved to have at 16, be around. I mean, I would go down to some of the recruiting offices and stuff like that, even well before I was 16, and they'd pull out their 50 cals and certain things, let me hold them. And I just recall, ever since then, it was a very profound experience to have. And it was something that I wanted to be a part of that my whole life, due to those experiences. And there's, I don't know, there's just something beautiful that could come of that, just honorable,
Yeah, I wish a lot of young men, I'm pretty sure it's still going on. I haven't looked into it in a while, but I'm pretty sure it's still going on. I was told even Michael Jordan went to Boy State at one point.
Oh, wow.
That's what they told us. I don't know. I don't know. So yeah, it was a crazy, awesome experience. And that was when I first had the calling to serve, because most of the guys that went to Boy State were at the top of their class. A lot of them end up going to West Point, the Naval Academy, because towards the end, they were telling us, hey, what academy are you going to? And I was like, what academy? I don't know what that is. Then that's when I found about West Point, the Naval Academy.
Okay.
And yeah, so that opened a door for me. And that's when I said that one statement I took last podcast. I came to the point where, give me a second. I came to the point where I was going to ask myself, what have I done for America? Like I said, I came to America when I was 6 years old, from a country called Chad in Central Africa, and my family didn't really have much, and we came here legally, and I was very proud of that. But at the same time, I just didn't want to just be in America and just like I said, just reap the fruits of what this nation has given me, without giving anything back, And I thought about it, but I never knew what to do about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when I went to Boise State, that kind of cemented things for me. Like, hey, you're calling us to serve. What better way to give back to this country by putting your life on the line? I can't think of any other better way.
Quite literally. And even those that ended up in positions in service that weren't more so as life-threatening due to the COVID tyranny, everyone's life was under threat. Unbelievable. And, some of them kind of even had a unique perspective as to, well, if this ends up taking me, like, in a way, this is what I signed up for. And there's respect there for those individuals, but I'm just like, shoot, I also could see how the wool's effectively been pulled over those individuals' eyes, and they're not actually seeing it accurately because, like, not to condemn anyone. I can't put myself effectively in anyone else's shoes. I'm not here to cast stones. I obviously would have made probably the same decisions if I was walking in their shoes. But for those that actually saw past and saw the red flags and the threats that stood more so fulfilling their oath to the threats, foreign and domestic, right there within their own ranks, gosh, and face great, more than pressures, but actual threats, and you get the boot, you lose all the benefits. It's just egregious outcomes upon egregious outcomes. And I just really hope the American people can start getting behind your guys' messages, and at minimum spreading it far and wide so we can create the momentum to fix these issues. So anyway, I digress. Continue on. I don't know.
That's a great point, James. And that's a testament to, why a lot of us feel strongly about, getting, kicked out of the army like that, or the military like that,
Right.
We joined for deep patriotic reasons. And like I said, the reason I told you, it's a deep personal reason, you know what I mean? And just to have that kind of like, spit in my face, it really hurt, you know what I mean? And so I joined. That's when I, the corny, I told you it was corny last time, but it was the John F. Kennedy quote: "Ask what you can do. Ask not what your country can do for you, but we can do for your country." So that I took that to heart. And then my senior year, I joined the army. So hey Lucas. My senior year, I joined the army, and I was waiting for high school diploma to finish the enlistment process, and I did that, and went to college after that. Did ROTC, became an infantry officer, and
infantry officer. You don't mess around. You were willing to throw yourself on the front lines. And I didn't mean to distract you there by just injecting Lucas in the middle of you talking. I can see how that was distracted. So welcome, Lucas. How are you doing? Let's do a quick sound check. Make sure we can hear you all right.
Yes, I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Awesome.
Man, we're doing great. We've been off to a great start. But we're glad to have you.
I'm excited to be here.
Right on. Yeah, you seem really chipper today. I'm psyched. I think you got some things to share, whether it's on this episode. Well, I'm sure you got some on, but also after. All right, Tahir, let's continue, man. You're just getting into the meat and potatoes of it.
So yeah, I'm not going to digress too long, but that's just the gist of my journey to U.S. military and how I came to serve. But the one thing that makes my story kind of unique is a sense that, during the heightened tensions of, the GWAT, in the Middle Eastern countries and Muslim countries, stuff like that. A lot of people ask me, why would a Muslim join the U.S. Army?
It's a good question.
I've had a lot of those questions, and I stood out a lot too. To be honest with you, in the Army, especially in the infantry, like wow, especially in the infantry, like you're a Muslim and you're in the infantry. How do you correlate that? How do you make sense of that? And that's a question I thought about, deeply. And one thing, people don't know too much about Islamic faith. Hopefully, we'll dive into a little more. I can give you guys a better perspective. But
that'd be great.
My reason for joining as a Muslim is a passage in the Quran that says, if you live in a country and that's your home, your family lives there and your livelihood is there, and it's your right. It's an obligation on you to defend that nation.
Oh wow!
So that's from the Quran, and a lot of people don't know that. So for me, America was all I've known since the age of 6. I don't know anything else. So for me, that's my obligation, and that's what gave me the push to go ahead and join the U.S. Army.
Well, that's very admirable. That's freaking awesome. You know what? Let's even shift gears before we get into the COVID tyranny. Once again, there was just a light within you that was attractive to me to even inquire more as to what led you to being such a devout Muslim and like care so much on behalf of your brothers and sisters of all different skin types, all different religious beliefs. There's something more beautiful to all of that than I believe most Americans even know. And it's no secret, kind of like we talked before the episode kicked off here, like as far as now what I know, because there was a time where I effectively fell for propagandist narratives. I fell for, and I'll have to even seek forgiveness for the darkening of my heart during this time when America seemingly demonized Muslim culture. And it was mostly in my life after 9/11. But what's come to light now, the way I see it, is that these countries, in fact, wanted to steer away from the American currency, the American dollar, right? Which isn't even a government institution. It's a privatized business. It's seriously the mafia happening. It's unbelievable. So obviously certain individuals couldn't have that. So they needed their war. And they went about it in such a horrific way that they even targeted the American people to fool us, pull the wool over our eyes to where we would unite and get behind their war narratives. That's why I say with even all the things that are happening in Ukraine and Israel, and I mean, you just never, they're going to continue to do this until we rule out the corruption here. So we got to unite kind of under that truth and rule out that corruption to even effectively get to the bottom. And anyway, I digress. So it just became clear to me. I'm like, oh my gosh. And that's why I love encounters like this, because I'm like, I don't see terrorists. I don't see all these things that American and the propagandist machine was spewing, right? As far as that culture and that religion, that belief. So if you want to embellish and, dispel some myths, expose some truths behind that, I sure would love to, because there was a phrase that kind of stuck in my mind that was tied to that culture where they were trying to rid the world of the infidel, apparently, and that meaning anyone that wasn't of their blood lineage or anyone of their belief. Yes. Like, please dispel that or bring to light. Let's hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. It's funny to say, I mean, before that, Muslims were living in America peacefully, no problems, no issues.
Right.
I mean, our biggest relationship, Saudi Arabia, predominantly Muslim country. We get all our oil from there. So, our political leaders have relationships with these, Muslim countries. So it's kind of just a weird correlation to tie Muslims with, terror and all this, false misconceptions,
Right.
And one thing I want to say is a lot of things people get misconstrued about, Islam is that Islam is most Muslims are Arabs, right? That's what the biggest misconception in America is. When you think about Muslims, you think about Arabs. That's the main thing. All Muslims live in the Middle East, but what people don't understand is that the biggest Muslim population in the world is not even in Saudi Arabia or Egypt or the UAE or Kuwait or any of the Gulf countries. The biggest Muslim population is Indonesia.
Oh, wow.
Indonesia has the largest concentration of Muslims in the entire world.
Oh, wow.
And they're not Arabs. They're Southeast Asian,
Yeah.
So
wow, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that kind of gives you a little picture of, why there's definitely deeper agendas to painting Muslims a certain picture and associating with Arabs and stuff. And I'm not going to get into too much of the, the political nuances. Obviously, there's a lot of, controversies and stuff like that. People don't really get. Maybe I'll leave that to you. But for me, just want to talk about the faith more so.
Okay,
it's not
absolutely.
Islam's not really it's not inherently violent religion. Back when I was in high school, I was part of we have this thing called, actually probably like my freshman year of college, we had this program called the Abrahamic Religions, Unity of Abrahamic Religions. I forgot what it's called specifically, but it was just our local synagogue in Harford County, Maryland, a church, a AME church, and the mosque. And I attended back in Harford County, and we had like a coalition going on, and where we all just got together and discuss our commonalities, so that way we can be able to unite against, our common, you could say common enemies, lack of a better word, like in terms of the agenda going on to, weird feminism, homosexual stuff like that. So we didn't want our children to experience that. So we decided, let's unite our faith on common ground. And the common ground is we're all part of the Abrahamic faiths. All of us are under the following of Abraham. Obviously some of us we all branched off, but at the end of the day, we can all trace our lineage back to Abraham. So with that being said, in Islam, the tenets of Islam just believes in the one God, and all the prophets, Jesus, Moses, Abraham, we all just call them prophets. So we believe in Jesus Christ. We believe in the resurrection of Jesus Christ, the coming of Jesus. We believe in the coming of Jesus Christ. We believe that he is a Messiah. He's going to come down, kill the Antichrist. We believe the whole the information about the New Testament about Jesus. Only difference is we just believe that Jesus is a prophet. We don't believe that he's God or the Son of God, or he's any, you could say, any divinity in terms of like Trinity, any of that concept. But we do believe that Jesus is a holy person, and he is a messenger of God. And same as the Jews believe, Jesus is he's an actual historical living figure, and he's important to God. And so that's one thing we believe in. And another thing also we believe in is that the books. So we believe the Bible was actually a book of God, as well as the Torah is actually a book of God. And we just believe that the Quran was the last book of God, meaning it didn't come to destroy the Bible or destroy the Torah. We believe that it came to complement these books, right? Basically saying whatever that because Islam was the last religion out of Judaism came first, and Christianity, and Islam's the last. We just took the messages from each of these texts, and in our sense, we've kind of allowed it to be complete. We completed the message. We didn't come to change the message, and that's why a lot of people have a little bad narrative about, you know, the Prophet Muhammad, you know, because for us, he's just a messenger, you know, just like Jesus, just like Moses, but he's not our God and he's not somebody we worship. He just another messenger just came to, you know, give us the information of Islam. And I'll get in a little bit more into it too, but go ask some questions if you like.
Well, you know what you're exposing to me. I mean, to me, I was recently asked about other churches and other books that they're affiliated with and things of that nature. And I just had the overwhelming feeling as to, well, who knows what the future, always stay meek, you know, and who knows what the future holds. But as of right now, for me, there seems to be more in this particular book, the Bible itself, than I can even retain. And it's also the living word in my eyes. And it proves that time and time again, to where it's just like there is no need for anything else in my life at this time, because this is more like I haven't even done this due diligence. But what you are exposing to me is, for me to even gain proper understanding of more things, I need to read into more of these other books. I can't necessarily judge them by its cover and whatnot, but there's definitely a lot of alarming things being exposed about certain ones, right? And rabbis and certain individuals speaking out very harshly to other, I don't know, descendants, other bloodlines, other religions, and speaking out on goy and just things of that nature, and very hateful messages. In fact, destructive ones, like trying to eradicate everyone else off of this planet. You know, but that's certain. I still, you know, I'm a baby Christian. I'm just a limited being, right? But I like the fruits you're bearing, right? How you talked about specifically churches uniting under a certain narrative on behalf of children in this country, right? I like how the fruit, like you coming here legally and everything, and just seeing like the fruits of this country and the value you felt in willingness to die on behalf of those freedoms and the individual, all the individuals here, like that's all very powerful. So I don't like to be like have any divisive, and more so look at the fruits. And if there's good and someone unifying and blessing, that's to be praised. If there's individuals out there creating discord and just hardship and suffering or murder, like that's to be addressed and stopped, you know? And anyway, I guess it's just highlighting I have a lot to learn in this existence. You know, we have such a limited amount of time, and that's why I'm just grateful for someone like you to step forward and not be walking in fear and willing to express things as you know them, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of America. I mean, the whole concept of just freedom of religion, freedom of rights, you know. I mean, that's what America was founded on, you know, and that's why a lot of us gravitate towards that, you know, because through the Constitution and the principles that allows us to be able to do these things. You know, I'm not the only Muslim in the army, and nor I'll be the last Muslim to ever serve in the army. You know what I mean? Or in the military in general. There's plenty of us here, and the fact that we are serving in the armed forces, that should tell you, you know, what. That's exposed some of the false narratives about Islam and Islamic religion.
Right.
I mean, we all believe people are infidels and it's time to kill them. You know, why would we join the U.S. Army and all this, you know, the global war on terror and stuff like that? You know what I mean?
Okay.
It makes no sense at all. Another thing I want to touch up into a little bit, just not to get too deep here, but you know, back to the question that you said about, a lot of people consider Muslims infidels and, the whole, that type of thing.
Right.
Islam is not an inherently violent religion, because a lot of people will pull out certain passages in the Quran that will say, kill these infidels where you see them at. And I like to say that these passages are there. I'm not saying they're going to deny that. But what people don't understand is that there's a historical. That's why it's important to study, a book before you, make judgments on it. There's a historical context of the Quran. So the Quran was revealed, in a span of 20 years. It wasn't just like one day, God just sent down the book to the Prophet Muhammad and that's it. So the Quran was historically, written in this history of 20 years. During that time, similar to the Christians, when Christians first, accepted Christianity, they were getting persecuted, by the Romans, beaten and tortured and whatnot. And same thing with the Muslims, Islam came to pagan Arabia. At the time, Arabia was full of pagans, and they all worshiped statues and idols. And the Prophet Muhammad was, he's amongst them, living amongst them. He's one of them. But he never worshipped idols and pagans or anything like that. But that's why he was chosen to be the, God's messenger. So when he, we got commanded to declare that there's only one God but God, and that's literally what the word Islam means. Linguistically in Arabic language, it means submission. So when the Prophet proclaimed that there's only one God but God, it created a lot of problems with the pagans living in Arabia at the time. So a lot of people end up becoming Muslim and submitting to that decree, and they end up getting persecuted just like the Christians, And so it was going on for a span of 20 years. And the first half of Islam, first 10 years, Muslims, they call it the Meccan the Meccan period. In Mecca, when Islam came to Mecca, Muslims weren't fighting their persecutors. First 10 years, they lost their homes, lost their properties, just like the Christians early on. They were beaten and tortured. And then when you come to the Medina period, when Muslims, God gave the command to the Prophet to tell Muslims, hey, you're getting persecuted in your land. You're not supposed to fight. Just like Christians turn the other cheek, same message. So they left Mecca. They went to Medina, which is another city about maybe like 2.5 hours away or 4 hours away. At the time, that's probably what, like a week ride on a horse or something. I'm not sure.
Oh gosh.
So they went to another city, established their own city, establishments. They left all their homes and belongings behind. And the pagan Arabs, felt some type of way about that. They did not like that. So 10 years established a new city, but all the property they left behind, it was burned, destroyed, looted. And they end up doing like a bunch of raids on the new city as well, to try to take people back and, still terrorize them. So the second half of that, after the Muslims, studied Islam, it became more established and organized. Then the commandment was go ahead and fight the infidels, for they destroyed your property and, attack them where you see them. When they attack you, go ahead and attack them. So the problem is a lot of the extremist Muslims in this day and age, in the modern 24th century, when they commit acts of terrorism, right, they go back and use that part of the scripture, because, and they say, oh, this scripture is relevant to this day now because, the infidels are taking over Muslims.
You can see this with any organized religion today, how people misconstrue historical verses and words and documents to good and evil, right? That's where I want to sound the alarm, and it's just like, folks, can we all just get along? Truly hone in on people's character, their integrity, what they say, what they do, the actual fruits they bear. Full stop. Because think of our loving creator God. He loves us all so much. This is just a moment in time. This is not our forever home, that he allows the most evil and nefarious things because we are to choose. We are to choose. And there is evil in this existence. I believe very definitively that the devil is sitting on the throne of this world, and he has been manipulating so many of even religions and religious folk to his bloodlust, to his very empty promises. Even if you were to gain the world, and he gave it all to you, that's empty. That is empty because it's all fleeting. Okay, congratulations. You got some stuff in this existence. Like, it's all going away when you're done here, and I'll weep for you then. Like, so we have God is everything free agency. So I don't want to sit here and Bible bash anyone, right? Especially at the point I haven't done my due diligence. I want to honestly just see what's going on as to the fruits. And if it's good, great. That's to be praised. If it's bad, we're to address that, right? And it's like the evil is effective. We just gotta, it just would be great to see us more so get along. So yeah, to your point, there's obviously extremists on all ends. Yeah. Like even Christianity. So are we to demonize all Christians? Christianity? Just like Muslim, right? To make that comparison and acknowledge, and it's just like, wow, okay, let's check the plank in our own eyes before we go pointing out the specks in others, right?
Yeah. I mean, that whole stuff like that, the whole terrorism and stuff like that, like I said, they just weaponize historical, scripture, and they say it applies to modern day today, but it's irrelevant. Muslims have their own countries. Yeah. How many Muslims countries that I named earlier? Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait, Qatar, Yemen. There's so many Muslim countries. Muslims have their own lands, have their own countries. What makes you think that you have to go ahead and attack people that are quote unquote infidels and trying to persecute you? There's no persecution. You have your own countries. So it's not relevant in this modern day and age. You know what I mean? So with that being said, yeah, that's why Muslims get a bad rep because of these people using the scripture, that was not relevant to this historical context and trying to bring it back and establish ISIS, Islamic State, and all that.
Wow. Well, your living proof is to bearing good fruit in those beliefs, and with that, it just softens my heart. And I would only hope and pray that it softens others to basically, whether you feel the need to research yourself, but it should soften your heart to love all our brothers and sisters in this existence and more so acknowledge what they're about. And if they're doing good, once again, that's to be celebrated, not to be slandered and lumped in. That would just be foolish. That, in fact, now would be evil, right? For any individual to just do. The ultimate judgment is for, God. I would like to state it's been amazing, road on my whole Christianity journey. And, I can't deny God or Jesus just as a prophet for us. I mean, just what other prophet throughout history performed the miracles of Jesus and the messages he gave us and conquered death. And it becomes, and the evidence is there, right? So just for example, in this country, it takes 2 credible witnesses to become fact in a court of law. There are over 500 witnesses, credible, historically documented, that knew and saw Jesus and before his death and after his death. It's irrefutable evidence. And so just based on that information, it's pretty powerful stuff. Like that should be enough for people to be inquisitive enough, spend the time on their knees researching the books written and on all these other individuals, and seek that relation for themselves, seek that truth for themselves. That is, I just love this conversation as a whole, Tahir, because when we really step back and look at the bigger picture and more so seek the why as to why we're stinking here. Like it leads to such a beautiful road of more so walking out a love for one another than these selfish, self-serving roads the world has us wrapped up in. And it just leads to beauty all around us. So I don't know, Lucas, do you have anything you want to say there before we transition? I'd like to get into your story to hear as to the pressures you specifically faced, the threats you faced in Tyranny and during your service from the our own military turned into this regime that it weeded out the most morally upright true warriors, and that's just a scary thing, and we need to recognize that and what's really gone on to combat worse things from happening. All right, Lucas, what do you got to say?
I have so much to say. So
I could tell.
I've read about half of the Quran so far, and I mean, just to keep it as simple as possible, the things that I've learned, I mean, the Quran talks about Moses, the story of Moses, Noah, talks about Joseph, Adam and Eve, it talks about Jesus. So it talks about a lot of these. It's actually very similar. It's way more similar to the Bible than people would think. And that might be a shocker to some, but, you know, just by reading some of the passages out of it, you know, the book, the Quran is a guide for the righteous. And it's like Sanusi was talking to me about how it's basically a book of truth. And that's the problem that we have today, transcending religion, is that truth can always be, you know, with deception or ignorance, people can bend it and make it however, which way they want it to be. But it's basically to seek truth and to believe in God. And of course, there's repentance all throughout the Quran as well. So there's a lot of values in it. It talks about a lot of these moral values, of course, and religions have a lot of moral values. And that's really great because people don't really have, you know, strong morals today if they don't follow religion. It's possible, but I mean, just looking at you know, some of these quotes here, I can pull them out. You know, do not mix truth with falsehood. Do not conceal the truth while you know it. I mean, that's such a powerful statement.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
Repent. I mean, that's mentioned a lot in the Quran. It talks about charity, giving back to others, doing no harm to others, you know, helping the innocent. Do not commit aggression, right? I mean, that's all in the Quran. And I mean, there's some things where, you know, in some ways in Christianity, it talks about putting on the armor of God, picking up the sword, right? There's plenty of stories in the Bible where it does get pretty violent, you know, where there is a lot of bloodshed, but
especially that Old Testament. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can kind of pick and choose like the good things from both the Bible and the Quran, but ultimately it's a complementary book. So I'll leave it at that. You know, there's things about, you know, don't be intoxicated, don't gamble, right?
Wow.
Don't commit adultery. Like these are the same things that are in the Bible.
Wow. Well, it's all of our each and own paths to walk in this existence. Evil would be behind the demonization of good groups of individuals, and why are we even so primal like that? You know, with the truths we're diving into, that we're all God's children, and we're allowing time and time again for the evil to build out this infrastructure that is misleading us, manipulating us to fight against one another. Now, there might be some extreme radicals, you know, that get MK Ultra or whatever you want to state, bad apples that want more and they twist things, but that comes from all different backgrounds, right? No one is really immune. And that's once again why I personally feel relationship with our Creator over any religion. Why put anything between that, you know? And when you feel his love. And I mean, he'll direct you essentially to what works for you. And who am I to say? Maybe for certain individuals and certain upbringings, maybe they're gonna be more effective in walking in the fruit of the Spirit and in the light through some of those books more than the Bible itself. Who's to say, right? Because we're all freaking different. So once again, why would we slander or threaten or murder or wage war on individuals or cultures or countries that are more so peaceful and loving and happy and doing their best to be morally upright? I want to see the bigger picture and how evil is using their institutions and finances and their power and their control to more so manipulate the masses. It kind of goes to even the title image of this recent episode of, let me find it here, War, a massacre of people who do not know each other for the profit of people who know each other but don't massacre each other. So they're pitting us against to their benefit. That was just a quote from Paul Valery. And how freaking true. Let's just stay. That's where we're to gain discernment. And we're losing that. We're losing that spiritual connection to properly discern. Heck, we're even losing the resilience to see love for one another and have a very conversation like this. You know, there's a lot of Christians that would just want to know and basically force upon you their beliefs.
Right.
And it's just like, we're not to do that. Like, that is what evil's here to do. The best thing we can do is explain our life experiences to the best of our ability and how it's blessed our lives. And if it plants a seed within another individual to pursue that path, that is entirely up to them. We're not to want to desire to control anybody like that. That's what the devil is here to do. So anyway, did you have something you wanted to say before we dive in? But it would be cool to get into your story regarding the COVID tyranny.
Yeah, this is just the last point I wanted to make on this. Okay. James, once again, you touched up on something crazy and excellent. Same thing with Lucas, and that just inspired me to just say that, you know, even me being, that's how you know this is evil, you know, even ISIS and all these, you know, terrorist organizations, I mean, they're killing other Muslims, you know. How many Muslims has ISIS massacred, you know what I mean? Right. In the name of Islam, and it makes no sense. That's how you know this is pure evil, you know. And to add on to that, you know, even me, and about just being able to just correlate, you know, I mean, coexist, you know, within religions, and not saying one religion is better than the other, because at the end of the day, you know, you could be the most holiest Muslim or the holiest Christian, but you're not close to God. You know what I mean? You're still sinning and doing all these things. I mean, just because you say you proclaim a certain faith does not mean make you just closer to God than any other person. You know what I mean?
Wow. Yeah.
So that's something that I definitely believe in. You know, it's not about the religion per se. The religion is just a tool to help you find God and get close to God. But that does not mean just because you're religious, you're a holy person, you're the best person in the world. You know what I mean?
Right.
And even my time in the army, you know, a lot of people ask me, like, you know, how'd you do it, you know, as a Muslim? Because you guys pray 5 times a day and this and that. Did you receive any pushback? And I'll be honest with you, I had no issues as a Muslim in the army. You know, like a lot of people know, like the military supports, you know, religions, you know, they support them hard. You know, even for me, I had a certain dietary restriction in the army as a Muslim. I eat halal, you know, which is kind of like, you say equivalent to kosher, like, but it's like a Muslim variant.
Oh, okay.
And so even our MREs, when we go to the field, they have halal MREs. You know what I mean? And even when it was time for me to pray, you know, I'll stop and pray. And a lot of my fellow, my fellow soldiers and colleagues, they respected me more because, you know, I stood on my faith and I practiced it without, you know, infringing on others. It's time for me to pray. I'll step away to the side, do my thing, and come back to the action. You know, it came to a point. Even some of my colleagues were like, "Hey, my battle buddies, hey, Tahir, it's time for you to pray. You know, go
That's
pray."
cool.
You know what I mean? Just looking out for
Man,
me. You know what I mean?
see, that's a great example. Even praying 5 times a day, like literally just stopping what you're doing, like that's got to be a great blessing, because that in and of itself is pulling you out of the mortal existence for a moment. Whatever it is, seeking that closeness, blessings, seeking praise, and expressing gratitude. That is all. Oh my gosh! If we could embody that and be constantly walking in prayer, how much more fruitful would we become? And we're so mortal, it's a forever practice. I fall in and out of it. I'm as mortal as they get, I tell you. But that's where, gosh, it takes some testimony built in to experience some life experiences and see some miracles. I mean, everyone's path is uniquely tailor-made, as Jeremy would say. But my goodness, once you feel that love, once it becomes convicted within you and you establish that level of faith and you see that clear, bigger picture, why wouldn't we strive to be constantly walking in that spirit? Because this is the dang freaking matrix. This is the dang illusion. What are we freaking doing here? It is quite literally the matrix.
We're wasting our time. James, you're right. We're wasting our time worrying about who's right and who's wrong.
Wow. Yes. That should have been the episode. We'd be wasting our time who's right and wrong. That is more so irrelevant if we tapped into each other's fruits. We tapped into, like, oh my gosh, we could more so effectively. That just spoke to my soul to hear. I genuinely feel through the different kind of angles of belief and that unity together would create the closest, most powerful walk we could have here than any one particular you choose it, right? 100%. But it takes humbling. It takes kicking pride and ego in the face. Why is it we long for people to specifically think the way we think and walk the way we walk? Like, we shouldn't need that when we're walking in God's love at all.
And this is the thing. So this is the perfect transition when it comes to the COVID tyranny in the military. So you have someone like Sanusi, right? He's a devout Muslim, prays 5 times a day, right? I'm a Christian. But at the end of the day, the military did not respect your religious grounds and accommodations at all. So
great point.
So when it came to the vaccine, that was the final nail in the coffin. You know, they were saying, like, your religion, your God doesn't matter at this point. Like, you have no free will, you have no free choice.
Wow.
So, you know, it's either you get this genetic experiment that's been, you know, pre-planned and rushed ahead of time, or you're out. You know, regardless if you're Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, Sikh, like, didn't matter at that point, like what religion you are or how devout you were. And, you know, that it all comes down to, you know, this quote. And this is not just the military, not just the government, you know, not just healthcare. It's just anytime you break a moral principle, you create a small crack in the foundation of the integrity.
Yes.
When times get tough, it becomes harder to act with integrity, not easier. Character isn't created in a crisis. It only comes to light. So we were all wondering, well, when is the time to step up? When is the time for you to act on your character and your integrity, right? Mm-hmm. And it's only when times get hard when that's actually illuminated, actually shines. Mm-hmm. People actually separate themselves from, you know, wheat from the shaft, you know, the strong from the people that will comply. And, you know, it's based on moral principles. A lot of that is rooted in religion. So, you know,
mic drop. Episode's over, guys. Thanks for joining. That was freaking amazing. Holy smokes, Lucas, listeners, Tahir, James. I'll even speak to myself in the third person like a weirdo. If we could fully grasp just that, what Lucas just touched on, just even the infringement on our religious rights, Bill of Rights, Constitutional rights, God-given rights, just right there in that infringement. It's not so much how are we not up in arms. Like this just to me proves how effectively we've been dumbed down. The fluoride in our water, the poison in our air, in our water, in our food. Like this has been going on for some time. It would be insane for Americans to, under the illusion of being free, see this take place, not fully grasp it, and stand their ground fully. Okay, we messed up. We didn't seize that moment right then, right there. Well, we can grasp it now. Are we going to? Listener, are you going to? Are you going to send this to everyone you know, and do your part in that regard? Or share your story? Or how do we propel this? I don't know anything else more powerful than magnifying the voices and trying to blow up a platform such as this. Tell me any more effective path I could take that would lead to actual solutions. I'll do it. But this is the best I could come up with. This is the best, like, God's led me on, and I'm just trying to fulfill it to the best of my abilities with all the flaws I got, which are many. But help us. Let's absorb just that. Thank you so much, Lucas. That was a true bomb if I've ever heard one.
Yeah.
So Tahir. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Just a couple other things. I was talking to Tahir about this the other day. If you want to test a man's character, give him power. So, when you sign up and you're in the military or any type of organization, you're given authority, power. I mean, you sign an oath, right? Read the Constitution, right? So that doesn't get corrupted. A lot of people are in positions of power. It's very hard to do the right thing. It's very hard to be in a position of leadership when you have immense power, right? And you want to keep that power. So you'll do anything at all costs to do that. And that's a hard thing to swallow, because a lot of good people don't want to be leaders. A lot of good people have good moral principles. They don't want to be in a position like that. And it's important to put people in positions like that. They don't crave power, right? But the people in charge crave it and they love it.
Right.
So few men are able to withstand, being bought out or, doing the right thing. But last thing I have to say is that there's no hopeless situations. Who have grown hopeless about them, every person has seeds of greatness within them. So just because someone is not necessarily, in a position where they can make a good impact, right? Eventually, they can get there and make change, doing the right thing and having moral principles.
I love that. Was that it? That was really powerful, because, I often say, and I genuinely mean it, evil would be whispering in your ears that, oh, you're no good. What impact are you going to have? Oh, just tune back into your favorite entertainment in your show or whatever. Do not discredit the very impact you yourself could have. Like, that's what's so cool. We're all, yes, there's some doppelgangers that seem to actually be eerily similar in this existence. But when you really look, even identical twins, there's legitimately indifferences spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally. We are all uniquely ourselves, and God has bestowed on each of us very unique gifts to tap into that. Holy smokes. I genuinely feel like there's some seers out there. There's some speakers out there. It's like we, in my eyes, make out the body of Christ together in unity to max benefit of this existence we live in. But some actually got the gifts to perform miracles, cast out demonic spirits. There's so much, and it's so real. what is there a better conversation to have nowadays, folks? Like, I could feel it in my heart, in my being. This is beautiful. I almost don't want to go back to COVID now, but let's do it, because we are wrapped up in this mortal existence. And if we don't properly acknowledge the mortal threats, how on God's green earth are we going to be able to gain the proper health and insight to fulfill our purposes, and even the ability to draw near to our God? Because I've been there knocking on death's door with bioweapons in my body, and it is not fun. I don't wish that upon anybody. So let's address these threats. So Tahir, dive in. How crazy did it get for you? Start where you feel most impressed to start.
Yeah, like, man, I just want to say, man, I heard, you have Lyme disease, right? And I know that's something I can't imagine having, you know what I mean? And like there's so many bigger things we have to worry about, and the fact that, like our food is getting poisoned, just hell, even just the right to even have a weapon and protect yourself, stuff like that's getting, infringed upon. Mm-hmm. And you're sitting there arguing about, whose religion is right, who's this. Like, let's have something that affects you in real time. You know what I mean? Worry about that.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah. So back to my story, in the Army. With when the whole COVID vaccine mandate came down, man, like, my wife and I, we knew, we're like, all right, yeah, you're definitely not going to take the vax. We already knew that. Like, as soon as it came out, yeah, we're not going to take the vax. But the problem was, how do I navigate, how do I not navigate around the situation, right?
Yeah.
And at the time, the Army didn't know what to do with people that weren't vaccinated, right? So, yeah, there's no vaccine out yet. Just come to, formation and stuff. And it was just the most ridiculous thing ever. You have the greatest fighting force in the world sitting there 6 feet apart, like couldn't even train, couldn't even do nothing. It was really strange. I've never seen an army like that before. It was very counterproductive, counterintuitive to all the measures that they had, And,
forcing masks on you? Yeah,
forcing masks on us. And I mean, I can't get down to how ridiculous it was. Like, just people couldn't even have masks. There was no masks to go around because they had to be like what's called N95 or something like that approved.
Mm-hmm.
So they just had us put like freaking some guys had balaclavas on their faces, or freaking I don't know, some rags and stuff on their face. I'm like, man, that's not gonna stop me from a deadly virus, is it? But these are stupid measures that they implemented. And I was like, man.
Well, it's actually war tactics. I'm actually trying to browse frantically the X because there was a recent post that actually specifically brought up mask wearing in the Nuremberg Code. It'd be nice to give the visual, but ultimately I'm going to go ahead and give up that pursuit and simply challenge people to look it up for themselves, but state profoundly that it is considered a war crime. Okay, crimes against humanity without leaving it open to choice. It's very clear in there that we are to have the choice, that even masking couldn't be mandated. That is criminal activity. So all these companies, all the talking heads that got weaponized, our own government, the very military ranking, all of this was, and over what? Damn it. I don't like swearing, but dang it to heck. Over a scamdemic, over defective PCR testing, over the same time they ramped up 5G. I genuinely question and challenge the COVID narrative. I want to get to the bottom as to what was causing these issues. Because the flu doesn't just disappear. The cold and influenza don't just disappear, folk. They were wrapping up, motorcyclist deaths, COVID deaths, And we all know the hospitals became the murderous camps, and then they demonized actual solutions, and they provided this is the solution. They gave it a false FDA approval, which none of them actually were. So then, anyway, I digress. It's just like when you're able to see the picture, it is such ludicrous. It is a smoking gun. Evil overextended his hand. And why are we idly sitting by accepting this egregious outcome? Continue with the tyranny. So they're masking you.
Yeah, James. To make it even worse, like even like guys or soldiers weren't even allowed to train or get deployed because they failed a PCR test. You know what I mean? I'm like, and the whole platoon got infected. They failed a PCR test, so they couldn't train or they couldn't do this. Yeah. It just got so ridiculous. So, wow. And then to add to that, you know, so I was like, man, you know, I'm not going to take the vax, right? That's not going to happen. But I still believed in the Constitution, the power of, you know, religious freedom, you know?
Yes.
So I was like, man, you know, the Army, remember I mentioned earlier in this conversation, the Army respects religion, right? Because we represent the Constitution. I was able to get perfect religious accommodations for my meals, my prayers and everything, right? But then why all of a sudden the vaccine comes in, the COVID, it's a 360, you know what I mean?
Wow.
And especially a virus that's, you know, unproven, you know? And right. I'm like, wait, that goes against the Army's narrative of religious tolerance or religious freedom. What's going on here? That's not the Army I knew that was providing accommodation for me being a Muslim and just making it easy for me to practice my faith. But now, because of my faith, I refuse to take a vaccine. You know, why now the Army wants to do a 360 on me? Yeah. You know,
an experimental drug to say the least, not a vaccine. They can't even call it. I mean, at this point, the word vaccine's been so misused and abused, and now what's been uncovered regarding all vaccines throughout history, it's literally playing God. It's literally biowarfare. It should just have the title of illness, disease, and death. That's what a vaccine indicates. Yeah. It's nothing protection related anymore at all. And you could see how the institutions have been incentivized to perpetuate illness, disease, and death over actually fulfilling what we previously defined vaccine as. And they did the old switcheroo with the whole FDA approval. So how many guys around you were making these connections? Many, if any?
Yeah.
Were any standing strong?
Yeah, I had plenty of my colleagues, you know, back in the 82nd Airborne. A lot of us, man, there was so much of us that, you know, didn't want to take the vaccine, you know. But it said being in the 82nd Airborne, one of the premier units in the you know, U.S. Army, you know, with a lot of rapid deployments and everything, you know, they wanted guys to be vaccinated, you know, and a lot of us, you know, were not taking it due to religious grounds. And for us, you know, they took us to a couple conferences or a couple meetings where it'll be like 300 of us in a one room, and they had a doctor, a lawyer, a chaplain, and they provided a whole PowerPoint slideshow presentation. They did it like twice, and each of these presentations, the doctor was telling us how, you know, mRNA technology has been around for even way before COVID. It's always been tested and stuff. And then the lawyer would say, you know, hey, these are illegal implications. If you don't take the vaccine, you're violating your constitutional oath to the U.S. Army. And then also the preacher was saying, you know, I know a lot of your religions say that, you know, you have to take the vaccine. And some of you guys, just Christians, there's Muslims and Jews out there are taking the vaccine. So you guys, it's a personal decision. It has nothing to do with religion. And they had the whole panel talking to us like this, you know?
Wow. Yeah. Their manipulation tactics went literally to no end.
Yeah.
They were willing to go to the ends of the earth, which Wow. They clearly had the funds to do so. And that's what's so alarming about the outcome of this scamdemic was the distribution of wealth. And we can only imagine what they're doing with that now. It is not good. I've seen it at play. They bought up more farmlands. They've centralized our food production that much more. They've ramped up the spraying in the skies. They've ramped up the frequency warfare. They've ramped up even the information warfare. You could see with all the weaponization of fact checking and just all these other things, like they're doing all they can.
Yeah, for my 2 cents, looking back on it, today's September 28th, 2024. And when I was in the military, it was all just bad news on the television, from Biden being sworn in, right? And, before that was the Antifa and BLM riots. So I'm sitting on base as, the cities are being burnt down. Small businesses are shutting down because of the COVID policies, riots are happening, and we're just sitting on base, just waiting, just doing nothing.
The peaceful riots is all the talking heads showed and burning buildings and cars behind them. This is peaceful.
Yep. And the military is told to stand down then, and they were also told to stand down January 6th. So they showed up and secured that stolen election. And that should have never happened too.
When are the people going to actually acknowledge these are war tactics and we are not just occupied? We are entirely a conquered nation at this point. I'm unmuzzled. Like, how you argue against that, please.
Yeah.
And if not, then we need to properly unify to address the conquered country we're living in. Because they're weaponizing everything against we the people.
Yeah, I just kept asking, myself, like, what are we doing in the military as this is going on? Businesses are shutting down. All right, January 6th, the withdrawal of Afghanistan, and then the final notice is time to take the genetic experiment. Yeah. So, come on. You have to draw the line somewhere.
And that's how you know when you're conquered, when your own military force is compromised, Yeah. Like how is that possible? Like now you have a standing army who cut their whole lifespan in half. You know what I mean? Like, what's gonna come in the future? And I came to those full realizations. When I was trying to resist the vaccine, and they took away all options of resistance away from us. They told us, hey, back to the whole religious thing. A lot of us were doing religious accommodations. And they told us, hey, don't even bother filing religious accommodation or religious exemption because they're not going to get approved anyway. So they were telling our commanders that, and, me being a lieutenant in the unit, I was only probably I was the only lieutenant, and there's one other warrant officer that didn't take the vaccine in my brigade, so I had a big, spotlight on me, so I was getting the most pressure, especially as an officer. I'm considered a leader example to a lot of my subordinates and the lower enlisted, and so I was really villainized. I was villainized heavily, at certain times where I was just made to be humiliated. I couldn't go into certain rooms, certain conferences. Back to also when it came to trying to separate me from the Army. Yeah, it took me almost a year to get separated from the Army because, they didn't know what grounds to separate me from, because they couldn't say, oh, because he refused the unlawful order. That's really what it was supposed to be, but they couldn't say that. So it took them a year to figure out how to separate me, and Lucas as well, and a lot of officers, So it's a lot of enlisted, they let him go, like literally like within a month after the mandate came down, federal mandate, within a month, maybe not even that 3 weeks, maybe they just cut them loose quick. The officers, it took like, almost a year. And that process was kind of torturous because we couldn't even apply for jobs, because, you put on an application, hey, I'm leaving the Army soon. I'm trying to start, look for a job. Okay, you get an interview. When can you start? I don't know. I gotta wait for the Army to let me go. So I lost a lot of job opportunities because I was not able to plan for the future once the Army let me go because they wouldn't try to tell me when they were going to let me go. You know, so it only took like the last minute. They let me go last minute. You know, by the grace of God, I was able to secure a job and have them work with me. You know, to push back my start date. But other than that, most jobs aren't waiting for you to start working. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Wow. So even they just genuinely didn't value. That's incredible. But the fact you were in one of those leadership roles and you stood the grounds and fulfilled on behalf of, and led to that nature. So many in those positions just caved to that pressure. So my hat's off to you to hear that. That's powerful stuff. So, oh my gosh. I want to scream into the microphone, dude. I tell you what. I mean, we're kind of nearing closing here. I just want to reiterate, folks. We have treasonous actors as our leaders now. There's treasonous behavior. Once again, the 22 a day, veterans, suiciding. I believe it to be even more than that, especially after the COVID crimes and the pressures. Do you know how many families this ripped apart? It is unbelievable. I mean, you just spoke out on the grace of God to even land into a position that kept you on your feet. It becomes incredibly challenging for wives and families and children to support, their husband's decisions in these matters. It has been so destructive. Okay. And these leaders are putting billions towards the criminal invaders and not supporting the soldiers willing to fight and die for our countries. Whether they're veterans from the COVID tyranny or they're veterans prior to all of this, that boils my blood. How is that not treasonous behavior? Why are we idly sitting by and allowing ourselves to be ruled over by this two-tiered infrastructure in this system that it's going to war every day? You could see with everything they're standing up, from the woke side of things, from the poisonous side of things, from the misinformation side of things, and mass psychosis. I just hope, irregardless, whether we right this ship or not, to get right with our God, our creator, our loving creator, and not be falling under the guise of the evil one that loves to masquerade as God, that Jesus specifically spoke out on as the prince of this world, the God of this world, can perform miracles in this existence. We need to properly acknowledge that to gain the discernment to not be deceived by the ultimate deceiver, liar, murderer, thief. And we could land into our purpose and save our souls. That is paramount. That is more important. Let the world burn if we could actually achieve saving more souls.
Yeah.
All right, fellas. This has been amazing. Let's just get some closing statements from you. Get out any last burning desires. I am just so grateful for you, Lucas. I'm so grateful for you, Tahir, and your guys' testimonies, your strength and courage to stand up and continually show up on behalf of others' freedoms, health, well-being, spiritual well-being, and just speak out. I mean, it's a tough time to do that. There are a great many threats, but who are we to fear? Are we to fear man? Or are we to fear the outcome and the potential? Because in my eyes now, with it being so clear, it's such a blessing. But if you're not fighting against evil and you're not fulfilling your role, your responsibility, and the opportunities we have, doesn't it kind of boil down to you're either a part of the solution or you're part of the problem? So get off that fence. Your soul isn't worth anything in this life.
Awesome.
Anything else from you fellas?
Yeah, just real quick. So, yeah, I don't fear evil at all. So I actually do fear God. So no one should be intimidated by evil or coerced or manipulated or deceived. Here's a good quote. It's been said that a person can live for 40 days without food. Kind of reminds me of Jesus when he did his fast. 4 days without water, 4 minutes without air, but only 4 seconds without hope. That's how long of a time, right? You can go without food, water, right? But when it comes to the mental fortitude of someone's determination, right? 4 seconds. Are you going to take that COVID jab, right? That 4-second answer right there, just in the mind. Our souls are hungry for meaning, for the sense that we have figured out how to live so that our lives matter, so that the world will at least be a little bit different for our having passed through it. So what is your meaning in this life? What is your purpose, right? Are you trying to make a difference? What can you make a difference with, right? And a lot of that does come at a cost. What cost are you willing to pay? So,
everything.
Yeah, a lot of good things can have harsh consequences and challenges, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be deterred from doing the right thing.
100%. Thank you for sharing that, Lucas. Anything from you, my brother, Tahir?
Hey, nothing much, man. I think we touched upon everything. Last thing I'd say, just like and subscribe on Muzzle Chat, Rumble. Please, this man is doing good work. Please support him. I can't express that enough. Please go support. Follow on Rumble, please.
I appreciate that, Tahir. It's you fellas, by showing up selflessly, are doing a lot of the heavy lifting on behalf of the listeners, on behalf of the civilians, on behalf of anyone in this country or even the world we live in, with what you're exposing and the unifying. You guys have very powerful testimonies, and I just pray it does break through to the hearts and minds of many to see what you're doing in this selfless nature and not discredit what they could do simply through shares, likes, in getting this message out. I don't want to forget to plug our brothers, the Forgotten Soldiers. John and Scott are doing amazing things, exposing the COVID crimes over here and much more. Now on Brave, I don't know why it's not populating, so I did pull it up using Google, which I like to stay away from. But even Brave seems to be manipulating information nowadays to an extent. My gosh, it's a forever battle, this war on information and censorship. That is so damning. But anyway, go to militaryaccountability.net. I'll be sure to add it in the link below and read their petition here. And it's a single one-pager. It's very powerful, and sign the petition. It's a call to action that could benefit us all. Now, we don't know what's ahead. There are some challenges ahead. Check out our affiliations. I'm affiliating with companies that could lead us to more so solutions, with Patriot Mobile being the only Christian conservative mobile network out there. Quit funding our enemies and put our money towards good things, right? EMP Shield. Okay, get protections for your home, your vehicles from grid threats, EMP threats. They threat solar flares, even. I mean, under the guise of a solar flare, I would say more than likely probably EMP. That I believe is singularly the best investment any of us can make. Just think about it. You don't want to be left stranded away from your family, or even in a home with your family that you need to immediately get out of. It secures so many other investments you make too in preparations, being able to load up your mule, aka vehicle, and get to safety. You're getting $50 off all their products. There's a lot of other affiliations that will lead to more resilience, more brain function, eradicating the toxins, bringing nutrition, all those things. So check out Bond Charge, Unchained Wellness Clinic, Pure Benefits, Aesthetics and Wellness. Check out American Reserves. They got not just survival food, they got Faraday bags, water filtration, all sorts of things. And just follow the prompts below. Punch in Unmuzzled. You'll be getting like 10% off. It's awesome to be sharing these discounts with all of you. Get some freedom merch. Represent some attire like this is 22 a day. This goes, I believe, 40 or 50% of the proceeds go to the 501c3, our Veterans First, when you buy any of the OVF merch through Black Eagle Apparel. We won't even plug our t-shirt. Go support our veterans. Let's go ahead and end. Jesus is calling. This is a pretty powerful one, so let's answer his call. September 28th. Open your mind. Let's restart that. I'll try to rule out my human. It's like you're listening to an 8th grader read a book. I apologize. Open your mind and heart, your entire being, to receive my love in full measure. So many of my children limp through their lives, starved for love, because they haven't learned the art of receiving. This is essentially an act of faith. Believing that I love you with boundlessness, everlasting love. The art of receiving is also a discipline. Train your mind to trust me. Coming close to me with confidence. Remember that the evil one is the father of lies. Learn to recognize his deception, his intrusions into our thoughts, guys, our subconscious. We must gain the proper discernment to even acknowledge that when he's whispering those lies. One of his favorite deceptions is to undermine your confidence in my unconditional love. Wow. Fight back against these lies. Do not let them go unchallenged. Resist the devil in my name, and he will slink away from you. Draw near to me, and my presence will envelop you in love. There's a few biblical references. I challenge you to check them out. It's only going to solidify this very message today. We have Ephesians 3:16 through 19, Hebrews 4:14 through 16, John 8:44, James 4:7 through 8. My dear brothers and sisters, I love you all so much. I'm so grateful for our warriors showing up on your behalf here today. Let's kick the devil where it counts. Visualize it. Kick him where he counts. Let's gain momentum together. I hope our loving creator showed up for you today. And may God bless you. God bless America. Until next time, take care.